What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy. Welcome back to some more Bible reading. So, we are now at Genesis 34. Basically, Jacob has made his way back, at least in the general vicinity of his, homeland. He actually, I guess, maybe more specifically, settled in a town. Well, it says in the town of Shechem. Whether that's the name of the town or the name of a particular person within the town, it's not quite obvious. But anyway, maybe that'll become clearer in this chapter. Oh yeah, also Jacob and Esau are on good terms. But anyway, alright, chapter 34. Here we go. One day Dinah, the daughter of Jacob and Leah, went to visit some of the young women who lived in the area. But when the local prince Shechem, son of Hamor, the Hivite, saw Dinah, he seized her and raped her. But then he fell in love with her, and he tried to win her affection with tender words. He said to his father Hamor, "Get me this young girl. I want to marry her." Yeah, just because you start building up some noble intentions later on doesn't make the earlier action better, if you ask me. But, I mean, if, I think from a biblical standpoint, if you are able in some way to, make amends for the previous action, and then, you're willing to do good things on top of that, I think that shows, an overall change of heart. Basically, that's one way of kind of defining repentance, for lack of a better way to put it. That is one thing that, as Christians we are constantly called to, is repenting of our sins and, trying to turn away from them and turn towards Jesus. But I have no clue if this guy's actually going to, make any apologies. He still sounds more covetous and or greedy than anything else here. Anyway, verse 5. Soon Jacob heard that Shechem had defiled his daughter Dinah. But since his sons were out in the fields herding his livestock, he said nothing until they returned. Hamor, Shechem's father, came to discuss the matter with Jacob. Meanwhile, Jacob's sons had come in from the field as soon as they heard what had happened. They were shocked and furious that their sister had been raped. Shechem had done a disgraceful thing against Jacob's family, something that should never be done. Okay, I'm curious what the little asterisk there is. It kind of specifies it a little more as saying the Hebrew is, I guess, more specifically translated as a disgraceful thing in Israel. I guess, rather than saying a disgraceful thing against Jacob's family. But anyway, so, I mean, can't really blame the brothers for being mad about the situation. And it outright says after that, it's something that should never be done. That's not like any sort of past tense or even present tense relative to the story. That is like forever and always, should never be done. Outright defines it right there. And can't really argue very strongly against that one, no matter what your particular background or thought process is. I think nearly everybody in the world would agree. This is a bad thing. Don't do it. Anyway, alright, so now we get to verse 8. Hamor tried to speak with Jacob and his sons. My son Shechem is truly in love with your daughter, he said. Please let him marry her. In fact, let's arrange other marriages too. You give us your daughters for our sons, and we will give you our daughters for your sons. And you may live among us. The land is open to you. Settle here and trade with us, and feel free to buy property in the area. Okay, I mean, Hamor's kind of trying to smooth things over, which you would think someone in his position would be inclined to do, but I'm not sure he realizes that, you know, at least per the general family history and traditions of Jacob, his sons, and their ancestors, they don't very readily give, you know, their children to outsiders in marriage. But anyway, verse 11. Then Shechem himself spoke to Dinah's father and brothers. Please be kind to me and let me marry her, he begged. I will give you whatever you ask. No matter what dowry or gift you demand, I will gladly pay it. Just give me the girl as my wife. Okay. I don't know, it seems a bit more like Hamor was trying to be diplomatic with it, whereas Shechem is just, you know, desperate sounding. Anyway, verse 13. But since Shechem had defiled their sister Dinah, Jacob's sons responded deceitfully to Shechem and his father Hamor. They said to them, We couldn't possibly allow this, because you're not circumcised. It would be a disgrace for our sister to marry a man like you. But here is a solution. If every man among you is circumcised like we are, then we will give you our daughters, and we'll take your daughters for ourselves. We will live among you and become one people. But if you don't agree to be circumcised, we will take her and be on our way. Okay. So, I mean, it says very early in that section that they answered deceitfully, meaning, I mean, I think I know what's about to happen here if I'm recalling this correctly, but pretty much it could mean that they wouldn't really feel the need for Shechem and the other people of the area to be circumcised, or they have some other intentions to not be so peaceful even when they get circumcised. But the whole circumcision thing was, you know, kind of a clever distraction, diversion, clever lie, basically. Because that was, you know, a thing that their family did for multiple generations, at least. So, you know, I mean, that was part of God's covenant with Abraham, I believe, was, you know, being circumcised. Him along with his whole house. And of course, they kept that going through the following generations. Basically, then to Isaac, then to Jacob, and then Jacob's sons. it was a clever kind of lie to tell them that, oh yeah, we can't, like, this is a sacred thing in our family. We can't just give someone in marriage, you know, to a person who has not done this sacred thing within our family. But anyway, verse 18. Hamor and his son Shechem agreed to their proposal. Shechem wasted no time in acting on this request, for he wanted Jacob's daughter desperately. Shechem was a highly respected member of his family, and he went with his father Hamor to present this proposal to the leaders at the town gate. Okay. Interesting note that Shechem was highly respected among his family anyway. Even though he would do such a despicable thing. But, of course, you know, the sense of honor and integrity may not have, you know, been viewed so highly, you know, toward outsiders or anything like that. Anyway, let's see what the leaders say. Verse 21. These men are our friends, they said. Let's invite them to live here among us and trade freely. Look, the land is large enough to hold them. We could take their daughters as wives and let them marry ours. But they will consider staying here. But they will consider staying here and becoming one people with us only if all our men are circumcised, just as they are. But if we do this, all their livestock and possessions will eventually be ours. Come, let's agree to their terms and let them settle here among us. So, I guess this is Shechem and or Hamor saying this to the leaders and basically trying to present this almost like a business move in some way, you know, realizing that Jacob has a multitude of possessions and livestock and other valuable things. And so they figure, hey, you know, these people are friends of ours. And they have a lot of stuff, so let's kind of try and let's do this thing so we can work our way towards, you know, just kind of merging this all together, and eventually all of what they have will be ours. Okay. Verse 24. So all the men in the town council agreed with Hamor and Shechem, and every male in the town was circumcised. But 3 days later, when their wounds were still sore, 2 of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, who were Dinah's full brothers, took their swords and entered the town without opposition. Then they slaughtered every male there, including Hamor and his son Shechem. They killed them with their swords, then took Dinah from Shechem's house and returned to their camp. So, when I mentioned about the deceit earlier, it was the latter option. They were essentially using that as a plot to weaken the men of the town and take their revenge on them. Anyway, also, real quick before I get into any other verses, it mentions specifically Simeon and Levi being Dinah's full brothers, so whichever one of the 4 women it was that gave birth to them, that woman would also be Dinah's mother. The way that reads, anyway. Alright, back to the present situation. Verse 27. Meanwhile, the rest of Jacob's sons arrived. Finding the men slaughtered, they plundered the town because their sister had been defiled there. They seized all the flocks and herds and donkeys, everything they could lay their hands on, both inside the town and outside in the fields. They looted all their wealth and plundered their houses. They also took all their little children and wives and led them away as captives. I wouldn't really say, two wrongs make a right, even in this situation. I mean, look, their rage and their desire for revenge is understandable. This does seem a bit excessive. I really don't know what else to really say about that, because now not only have they killed the men, but they've essentially taken all the goods from the town as their own. Spoiler alert, question mark? There will be instances of God specifically commanding his people to go into certain towns and, wage war with them and, even in some cases plunder their goods upon victory. In those particular cases, that was God also, in a way, bringing his judgment upon those towns that were being overtaken by his chosen people. So I see this as a little bit of a reflection of that. I wouldn't say for sure that this particular act would have God's blessing, so to speak, on it, but it's very reminiscent of that, in that, it's basically a form of punishment for the wickedness of a particular town or group of people. Anyway, let me get through the last few verses here and then wrap this up. Verse 30. Afterward, Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "You have ruined me. You've made me stink among all the people of this land, among all the Canaanites and Perizzites. We are so few that they will join forces and crush us. I will be ruined, and my entire household will be wiped out. But why should we let him treat our sister like a prostitute?" they retorted angrily. So, Jacob's like, what have you done? This is going to give me a horrible reputation in all the nearby towns. If they think this is what my household will do, and I become known as, we become known as a family of murderers and thieves, plunderers, whatever you want to call it, they're just gonna say, "No thanks, we'll stomp you out while we can, because our numbers are greater." And then his sons are pretty much just like, "Well, we couldn't just, we could just let this slide. So, what? Did you really expect us to just sit around and do nothing?" Anyway, and that's actually where the chapter ends. It seems like the start of the next chapter will be picking up, if not immediately, then at least shortly thereafter. So I guess, I'll need to give some context whenever I start that one. But anyway, that is it for now. Not sure I really have too many other thoughts to add. I think kind of the big standout observation I made was the whole, kind of connecting it to future instances and just kind of noting the similarity. Again, not saying that this particular form of revenge or whatever was okay in God's eyes. And clearly Jacob is not okay with it. But, you know, I guess it's another reminder, in a sense, that, you know, God is a God of justice. And, you know, there is a demand for things to be made right whenever there is wrongdoing, which, in the broader scheme of things, of course, points to Jesus and, you know, his death and resurrection and all that kind of stuff. And the fact that, you know, it's like pretty much everybody, even up to this point in the Bible, has done something wrong, has done something that's, you know, not God approved, for lack of a better way to put it. And so even as early as this, we're seeing a need for what Jesus did by, you know, coming to earth, living a perfect life, dying as the sacrifice needed for us sinners, but then also, you know, conquering the sin and the death that we are otherwise captive to, and, you know, conquering that by, you know, rising from the grave and ascending to heaven once again. I'm not sure I expected this to be the particular chapter when I first really started, you know, bringing that broader connection in. But let's be real. The Bible, as we have it, like, the whole point of it is Jesus, recognizing Jesus, the fact that we need Jesus, and, you know, pointing towards the significance of what he did and how necessary that is for us. And if it seems like even now it's difficult to, you know, remain perfect in God's eyes, you should wait until we get to a few books later. But anyway, I digress. I will save that for later on. So, anyway, that's it for now. As always, like the video if you enjoyed it. Share with others if you want them to see. Information on my other social media pages is down in the description. And of course, follow me here by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. I mean, you only need to subscribe to really keep track of my channel and have access, or like have easy access to all of my videos. Just go into your subscription feed then. But if you want updates when I post new videos, click that little bell. I mean, I post my videos on a pretty consistent schedule as it is, but sometimes, you know, that has been subject to change over the past years. So, like, you know, just in case it ever changes again, not a terrible idea to click that little bell. Anyway, of course, also leave comments way down below with any thoughts that you have. Any other connections you want to make, thoughts on this particular chapter, whatever. Let me know down below. So that's it. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you for the next one. But until then, stay cool, people.